I have 7 requests for committees to meet today during the session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
Mr. President, if your car is a lemon, you don't sue the bank, you sue the dealer. A college can be a lemon just like a car can be. A college could promise a potential student a job and then tell them that 50% of their students scored perfectly on their SAT tests. A potential student might use that information to take out student loans and enroll in a college, and then the information turns out to be false. The student may be stuck with student loans they can't afford to repay. But unlike a car, if your college is a lemon, you do sue the bank, and the bank is the taxpayer. Today, Democrats are forcing the Senate to vote on a Congressional Review Act that, if passed, would overturn the Trump administration's borrower defense rule. This process allows a borrower of a federal student loan to have their loan forgiven if their institution misled them and that misrepresentation led to financial harm. First, if your college closes, it's important for you to know that your loans are forgiven. You say that again. If your college closes, it's important for you to know that your student loan is forgiven. There are about 6,000 colleges and universities in our country. 783 of them closed in 2018. For example, when Corinthian College closed, that made a lot of news. Many students, though, transferred to another college. But if they didn't transfer, they weren't stuck with their student loans. Their loans were forgiven. So we're not talking about that today when we vote. If your college isn't closing, but it does defraud or mislead you, then you can file a claim. You can file a claim to have your loan forgiven, and you file it with the United States Department of Education. There are 42 million Americans with an outstanding federal student loan. In 2018, about 106,000 of those 42 million Americans filed what we call borrower defense claims. They claimed they were misled by the college when they used their student loan to go to that college. In November of 2016, the Obama administration issued a rule that required a borrower to demonstrate only that they had been misled, not that they had been financially harmed. The Trump administration fixes that overly broad regulation while still protecting borrowers and the taxpayer. Here's the difference. Under the Obama administration, if one student had filed a claim and proved that he or she had been defrauded, all the other students in that program, all they have to do is to attest that they'd been misled in a similar way before having their loans forgiven as well. Sort of a class action. It was unnecessary for the first student or subsequent students to prove that they'd been financially harmed by that misrepresentation. What this meant is, if you went to school but had misled students, your loan could be forgiven even if you had a job making $85,000 a year. Under the Trump administration, each student needs to file a claim, prove that they were defrauded, and that they were financially harmed. And then their loan would be forgiven by the taxpayer. And remember, the bank is the taxpayer. Secretary DeVos's borrower defense rule restores the original intent of the law that a borrower must be misled and harmed. The new rule establishes a fair and clear process for what a borrower must demonstrate. Number one, that the school misled them. 2, that the student relied on that information to enroll in the school. And 3, that the student was financially harmed. The new rule gives the borrower ample time to submit a claim and ensures the department is basing their judgment on all available information. The DeVos rule also protects the taxpayers who spend roughly $100 billion a year on federal student loans. It continues to allow the Secretary to recoup funds from an institution who has defrauded or misled borrowers. It encourages the borrower and the institution to resolve issues directly rather than involving the federal government. And the new rule allows the department to evaluate the level of harm to each individual borrower filing a claim and forgives the appropriate amount. For example, if you were told by the school that you'd make $45,000 a year when you graduated, but you're only making $40,000, the department could decide to forgive a part of your loan. The Obama administration's rules went too far and allowed borrowers to have their loans forgiven whether or not they had actually suffered financial harm. Secretary DeVos's new borrower defense rule restores the original intent of the law that the borrower must be misled and harmed. I encourage senators today to vote against today's Congressional Review Act. Thank the President. I leave.